What up, everybody? My name is Justin. I'm here with
Pam Fender
and Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller, he is a consultant. He is a coach. He owns multiple businesses. Overall, good guy. Pam, you want to add anything to that?
that he has a heart of contribution, which is kind of the reason why we're here today. Because if anyone has watched any of our podcasts so far, we need some counseling. I won't go much farther, but I feel like Jeff might need to. By the way, he is technically a leadership CEO coach, and that is what his profession is. He has agreed to assist the two of us as a charity for us to do some coaching on our podcast. But before we get into it, I think Jeff should introduce himself because we really want to spotlight his business for real, but we aren't joking about us being coached. So go take it away, Jeff.
Well, thanks, Justin and Pam, for having me. You guys do such a great job. So appreciate the spotlight and for hanging out for a little while. Just a little background. While I'm sure I've counseled people in the past, I try to stay in my lane as a coach. And these two are great at podcasting. I have a podcast that a few people listen to. So good differential between, a consultant and a coach is, hey, if I was a consultant, I'd be giving these amazing folks tips on how to have a better podcast, specifics, like really like fruit on the tree. Like I am a great podcaster and here's how you do it. That is not what I am. And disclaimer, I don't pretend to be. Coaching is a little different, right? I'm really working on who people are trying to be, especially in the realm of leadership. And I got that way from background in professional athletics. I used to be a pro tennis player, and now I am a suspect golfer. But I ran tennis clubs after I played. And one of the things I noticed was all these amazing leaders and CEOs and how much they confided in me as a tennis pro. Like there was like nothing they wouldn't tell me. And I was kind of shocked, right? And I could tell.
Almost like a priest, right?
It's
like professional.
Right. And they were kind of like, all right, what's this tennis pro going to do with this information anyway, right? But they would trust me with their kids, with their spouses, with themselves, with all these secrets. And what I found was they didn't really have someone in their corner. There wasn't like an autonomous person they could confide in that could also be trained to support them. So that kind of got me thinking about coaching. And then, 8-9 years later, here I am fully entrenched in the world in personal and professional development and on with you two.
I do have a question, and I don't mean to throw off our podcast because I never do that. But I do know your mom. And in my opinion, and it's my personal opinion, it might be of others as well, she pretty much is a rock star. So I have to ask this question. Growing up under kind of those parents that literally were leaders, movers, and shakers, how do you feel like that went with your development? And my point is that, did you feel like you had a lot to live up to? Did you feel like you were just, had early success with watching people like that? Or just kind of want to get your overview of that? Because, some of us just had some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and said, go to school, right? And I'm not sure that that's happened with you, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it was different. I mean, my dad was 49 when I was born. My mom was in her mid-30s. And so I grew, and I was the only child. So I knew how to set like an 8-piece dining room table set. I knew how to run like a poker game with like 20 different poker styles and things. Not a lot of like 8-year-olds knew how to do that. So it was a little bit different. So I had some embedded, I think, people skills probably. Like I was always taught to have conversations, to talk to guests when they came in. And our townhouse was small, so there wasn't very many places for me to hide. So I was there. So I think that just gave me comfort in talking to people that were a lot older. So I think that was probably the biggest thing. And then obviously like just agreements, like it was pretty matter of fact. Like, hey, if I wanted to go play sports, here was the minimum, get a 3.0 average, finish your homework before you leave the door, make sure your room is cleaned. It wasn't like a negotiable. It wasn't like Army style. Like they didn't really care if I played sports or not, but they knew I did. So they were very smart of knowing what motivated me and then using that motivation for anything else that I was around.
So she also has told me and Jeff to stop texting and voice texting and pick up the phone and call people. So Jeff, are you afraid of the phone as much as your mom has told me that I am?
No, actually, like I'm old school like that. I pick up the phone a lot. I have conversations, obviously, in my business. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was on the phone a ton before I started this profession. I was on the phone a lot, and obviously now I have to dial it back a little bit.
Right.
But I found that, especially with coaching, you really can't do too much coaching with texting. Voice text is a nice, happy medium. You know, people can hear your voice, your tone, your fluctuation. So that's been a really cool, I think, technology advancement that I like.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. But it's interesting because, you know, as we talk about us coaching and everybody, I know we're joking, but I have spoke to Jeff multiple times in regards to his coaching. I definitely believe in what he does for leaders in our community, through the nation. Actually, he speaks in a lot of places. So it's actually awesome to have one-on-one time with you because, you know, sometimes small business owners don't have those same opportunities as big corporations do for having real good coaches that really understand, to your point, that someone's might give you a tidbit, you spend the time and education on that. And a lot of times small business owners, we don't spend enough time on our education. So I think that's kind of a key piece to, you know, Justin and me are trusting you to take us down this journey. But, you know, I guess the expectation is, you know, what do you expect from someone, or, you know, when you're, I'm going to say, interviewing them to see if they fit for your coaching?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think coaching in the way it's classically trained is still relatively new, about 25 years. Where consulting, I mean, she was probably consultants, you know, caveman of like how to hit the hammer on the rock, right? Like, no, this is how you do it. So 25-year industry, it's still a lot of education of what coaching is, what coaching isn't, especially in the realm of consulting and therapy where people have a little more knowledge on that.
Yeah.
So I like to have conversations, honestly, to see like if it's worth it for people to invest in coaching. You know, like what kind of things do you want to create? Why do you want to create them? And when do you want them?
Yeah.
I think without the answers to that, I can't really in good faith say coaching is a good resource for them. And then it's chemistry, right? Just like an athletic coach, right? Like you're going to spend a lot of time with them. If their voice annoys you, if their sense of humor annoys you. I always say if people don't like slightly sarcastic, bald men, I'm not the right fit for them. And that's totally okay. I know a lot of coaches and I'll refer them out. But it has to be a fit. It has to be a chemistry, almost like, you know, relationship here. So are they coachable? And what do they want? And am I excited about that? Because if I'm not excited about it, then maybe I'm not the right person for them.
How do you basically accommodate, like there's so many different types of businesses, right? There's so many different types of industries. How are you able to come up with solutions for all the different types of personalities and the different types of industries out there?
That's a great question. And I think that's what separates classical coaches versus consultants, right? So when I was running tennis clubs, people would hire me to teach them how to play tennis, right? Very consultant, you know, client relationship. Coaching, you know, really classical coaches are trained in the International Coaching Federation in ontology, which is a very fancy word for how we show up, who we're being in the world. So whether you're an athlete, an educator, chief technology officer, or a CEO, I'm not going to get into the weeds of what you do, the content, but I'm looking at what's behind who you're showing up as. So we all have these paradigms or contexts that we buy into, like, hey, I might not be good enough, not enough time, money scarcity, time scarcity, right? These are common ones. So depending on whatever you do in the world, we all have our relationship with those things, right? So I work with those mostly. Now, if I happen to have some fruit on the tree, like I was working with an athlete or someone running a tennis club, I might have like a little value add in the content. But mostly I'm working, what are the paradigms that are getting in your way? And how can I, through questions and reflections, make you come up to those awarenesses and then create structures to move you forward?
Well, I think that's a really good thought process, because I think people are just like, oh, nobody understands my business. Nobody understands my, my problems, my, what I'm going through. And, as me and Justin move forward in our podcast, really serving the community, we really have fun together. So just for we really don't feel like there's any qualms between us. But I think for business coaching, for both of us, I really care about Justin's business and what he is doing. And, when we're doing podcasts, I'll say to Justin, hey, Justin, use that for your business, or, hey, do this. And Justin's like, oh, okay. Yeah. That, what'd you say, Justin? It was like 2 birds, 1 stone. What was it?
That sounds like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yes. That's what Justin's. Yeah. But it's just funny because sometimes while we're doing this for the community, right, we're also having the ability to spotlight our businesses.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not, to your point, Justin, well, I should say Jeff, Justin and I don't know how we show up, right? We do the best we can. There's a lot of work behind the podcast. And I think a lot of people know that and respect that, but it's a lot. And you have to have 2 people that get along really well and don't cut each other off. So we're just kind of giving you some of the things that Pam might need to work on, Jeff. But to that point is, just because I perceive myself a certain way doesn't mean that's the way that you see me either, Jeff, right? And we've been friends probably for going on a couple of years now. So, unfortunately, for Justin, you might have a little bit more time needed to get to know him, but pretty sure that you could coach me in 2 minutes and be like, Pam, you have these 5 things, I'll see you in 6 months, because it's going to take you that long to get there. Just be real. But to that point, Jeff, I as we're talking about this, you've been doing some group coaching. Have you enjoyed that?
I have. I think, similar to podcasting, or Pam, I know you do a lot of speaking. Justin, I know you have a nonprofit and a profit company, right? Like, we do these things in general because we want to make people or communities better, right? But we also need money to live, right?
Yeah.
And want our business to be successful.
Yeah.
So, coming from the LA market to the Charlotte market, it's just a different type of value for coaching. And there's actually a really good coaching community in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to a point where there's a lot of, hey, I really want to do coaching, but I can't afford that price point. Mm-hmm. So then I started to think, okay, well, how can I still get what I need as a business owner, but still provide value?
Yeah.
And combining groups that mesh together, mm-hmm. and so they can get the value that they want, and I can still get what I need. I think that was a happy medium. Mm-hmm. And again, like, I'm all for being uncomfortable and being on my toes. So one-on-one, I know exactly what that one person is going to think or say. Most of the time, I don't have any idea what 3 or 4 people are going to say. And so also being able to facilitate that group energy and that group momentum is another added challenge. So it's been fun, and it's been rewarding, I think, to the people that have been in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you worked with, well, I don't want to go away from the, the group setting, but are there any particular stories that you can tell us that, you've seen some success, or you've seen some conflict in those situations where you had to do things differently than you would normally do with just working with one CEO?
Yeah, it's been a lot of different things, which has been fun and cool. Yeah. I remember when I left the tennis industry and it was my first year out coaching, my neighbor wanted to meet about coaching. And it took us a year. Now, mind you, literally a neighbor. It took us a year to meet. And so we're meeting there, and I think we're meeting to talk about coaching. That was the premise. I think he thought we were just meeting to have lunch. So he started asking about coaching, and all of a sudden he got really insulted because he thought I was talking about him needing a coach. And I was just saying, hey, do you know anyone who would like coaching? He had a wide array of network in LA, and he got really insulted. And so, of course, I was like, no, you don't need a coach. You've got, Ferraris in the parking lot, great family, great home. Mm-hmm. And then he shared that, there's a couple of things that weren't so great. Mm-hmm. And so he a pronounced like unbeliever in coaching. He was all about consulting world. He was like, if I want to hire like a poker coach because I want to learn poker, I'm going to hire a poker consultant. I worked with his son, who was on the board of his company, and his number one salesperson, who could not be in the same room together. So we were supposed to do group coaching. I started group coaching, and obviously not being in the same room together, that was going to be rough from the get-go. So I advised him that, hey, we're going to do individual coaching, and maybe 3 months later, we'll do group coaching. Well, fast forward 3 years. We worked together for 3 years. Not only did they get in the same room together, they started working together and rebuilt that friendship. That company went from being valued for $8 million and sold when I stopped working with them for $28 million.
Wow.
And that CEO who once didn't believe in coaching is now my biggest fan. And anyone who wants to talk about coaching with him on my behalf will take the call 24/7. So for me, that was a really tough thing a year into business with a really strong personality. Just to believe in what coaching is and what my abilities were. And it was not easy, but very fun at the end.
Yeah, I think that, I think it's extremely important, coaching or courses, online courses, or just courses that you could be a part of, because especially when starting a business, like you don't know what you don't know. Like us being in the podcast world, we don't know what we don't know, right? And
we don't know anything.
We don't know. but to we know that a year or two down the line, we're gonna get it together, right? But
one day.
But there's some businesses, they don't have a year or two down a year or two to get it together. Some businesses need to have it together within a couple of months, and they can't go through the failures of the learning curve. So that's where courses, or that's where a coach comes in, is like, I'm gonna walk you through it, because think of all the money you lose in those 2 years versus, all right, if I lost $150,000 in the next year and a half versus me paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for a coach, it still ends up being worth it.
Right.
Depending on where you stand and what type of industry you're in. So I think that's good.
Well, it's interesting because you bring up a really good point, because in real estate, you literally get your license, and you studying for your license and doing everything for your license was to pass the laws. It didn't have anything to do with practices of real estate. Like, it didn't even tell you how to open up a door. And I know you're like, well, what? But there's a lot of different locks out there. And like when I coach realtors, like that's the very first thing we do. We go to a door and I make them open it like 9 times, because they have to listen for the locks, because they're not all the same. But yeah, nobody in real estate knows how to sell real estate. A sales background's awesome, but nobody knows how to do it until they get in it and they fail a couple times. And, and we tell them to get coaches and people and mentors and stuff. But, to your point, I only had $5,000 when I got started. And by the way, that was a lot for a lot of people, but Aaron put $5,000 in my bank account and said, Pam, get started, take care of your stuff. And in 90 days, I had my first sale, but a lot of realtors don't really start selling in the first 90 days. Some it take a year. So to your point, having somebody behind them, seeing how they show up, because I do feel like us coaching with Jeff, I feel like there's going to be a lot of pieces that we really could improve on. Even like today, how organized are we, right? Things like that. So I guess some of the things, Jeff, is what's some of those questions that you normally ask people kind of when they first get started, to kind of almost like a pre-screening of things that we're supposed to be ready for? Because, Justin will never be ready. He'll take him longer. Yeah, for sure. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I ask people usually is, hey, what has you on the phone with me, or on a Zoom call with me, or meeting for me with coffee? Usually there's some trajectory or route that they got to sit with me or a coach. I really want to understand like where they're coming from. A lot of times it's, hey, have they done coaching before? Like, what's their relationship with coaching? Are they a complete novice and like don't know anything about coaching? What were some of their failures? Again, you get people all over the place that want to be like fixed or rescued, or maybe have some trauma, that might be a therapist, right? You might get someone who doesn't really care about how they show up. They just want to move their product forward. Well, that might be a consultant, right? So I want to really get clear, like, hey, is a coach the right person for you? And then if we establish that is, like, all right, I want to get really clear of, like, at the end of our time together, whatever that agreed upon time is, what would make this a home run?
Yeah.
You know, and then we can go macro, and then we actually work together to make it super specific and create a roadmap for that. But in that initial conversation, it's like 3, 4, 5 things. Maybe they want to be a better parent. Maybe they want to double their business. Maybe they want to run a marathon. Maybe they want to create a podcast or write a book. Like, I have no idea. And honestly, like, most people don't have any idea.
Well, that's the thing I was going to ask you, because don't most people, when you ask that question, they're like, well, why aren't you just telling me what I need? Because a lot of, to what Just said, a lot of people don't know what they don't know, right? And they think they're doing everything right, but, you know, it's almost to your point, like going to a counselor. A counselor's like, well, that was your parents that did that to you, or that was, the, you know, but, you know, but in coaching, you know, some people usually, by the way, I'm very driven, in case anyone's wondering what kind of person I am. But so I'm very specific, I think, on what I want out of coaching a lot of times. I don't think I ever write a check for anything unless I'm very specific on what I want. Justin, how are you?
I mean, there's times I don't know what I want, but I can be convinced and I'll write the check. So that is an issue. So yeah.
You can be sold too. You can be sold too.
I can be, yeah. That's why when I'm in the mall and I'm walking there, like, hey, come here, can I talk to you? Like, I really have to run, because if I sit there and talk to them, they're gonna sell me. So, like, not right now. So that's how I am.
That's awesome. So Jeff, how are you liking Charlotte?
We love it. We love it. It kind of reminds me, I grew up in Santa Monica in California. When I was a kid, I thought it was like a suburb, like a small town. Obviously, we only knew what we knew, right? But it reminds me of, like, how I grew up, where just a bunch of friends that were like neighbors. And we'd come back and when it got dark and go play, and a lot of outside time. And the people here are awesome. For those who are listening to this are not from Charlotte, the food scene is almost too awesome. Like, I have to dial it back. I think the only thing I miss about Southern California is Mexican food. But everything else, tit for tat, Charlotte might have it beat.
I will say Dana Point had the California steak, the calamari steak that I loved at Dana Point in California when I was out there. But I don't know if anyone knows this. I don't think I have the right stats, but I think it's almost like there's like the top 10 chefs in the world come here at one point or another, to whether they work with a kitchen or a restaurant in the area. Like, Charlotte seems to be a huge scene for them, and they kind of stay in the background because you don't always know that they were here or what. But if you start asking questions to restaurants, some of these restaurants will have some of these amazing chefs out there that will come and teach. They come and spend some time with some of these different restaurants in general. And, you know, and some of this stuff is just old, like, it's just been here forever. And it's, some of them are in the hood, but they're really great restaurants. So I agree with you on that one. I also like the weather. Me and Justin didn't come from an area that had always had great weather. So, you
know, the weather is a perfect segue for me today. And I'm going to tell you why. Sorry to take you guys off of what, you know, the coaching part. But Saturday, well, April 20th was my anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And so I was going to drop my kids off to my mom, and which is in Rock Hill.
Oh, gosh.
And so I'm almost there, and we get engulfed by a tornado.
I heard a big huge hailstorm, right?
Huh?
Was it a hailstorm or a tornado?
It was a tornado and a hailstorm.
Oh, gosh.
Whoa. I don't know. Give me 1 second, because give me 1 second.
I heard about it. My mom was sending me pictures.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying. But I had my kids with me. I had my 3 kids in the back seat. And and it came out of nowhere. And I've never seen a tornado. I've never been a part of anything like that. And so after like 5 minutes of just being there, sitting with hail just storming you, and you can't see anything, I was like, I'm a videographer. Let me take out my camera.
No, you did not.
And I started recording. So I actually am posting a video today.
Did you should have shared it to the news.
I thought about it, but I'll just show you the beginning of it.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
So at this point, before I started recording, it was 10 times worse. I couldn't see that car in front of me.
Did they tell you, like, while it was happening, there was a tornado coming through too?
No. When you look on the news, it says surprise tornado.
Oh, wow.
So nobody knew it was happening. And obviously, I'm dodging trees out there. Like, literally dodging trees, falling into the street.
Yeah. So on Sunday, when we were coming back from Savannah, we drove through Rock Hill, and Aaron goes, "Why is all these cars got leaves and trees all over? Like they're driving, they're still on their car." And I go, "It must have been the hailstorm." So that had to be pretty serious. Were the kids freaking out, or were you just super calm about it?
I mean, I just started praying, honestly. I told the kids put their heads down. They put the book bags over their heads, just, keep themselves safe. My windshield started cracking. It definitely was intense. Like, my mom's, like, all the houses, like, their sidings are, like, have holes in them. Fences are destroyed, so it was intense. It was like 8-9 minutes long.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like we were in it.
That is really crazy, and I know that we don't know this, but Saturday morning, I got a phone call from a client in Rock Hill that wanted to list their house today. So I probably should go down there and look at it today. I'm not even lying. I'm not even lying. So we might have to get some work done before we list it.
Right. Yeah, it was a lot of damage out there. There's a lot of damage.
So as we're talking about Charlotte, though, that is one thing. Like in Indiana, we didn't get any of it, and we're literally 10 minutes away. So in Rochester, it used to be like if there was snowing in one area, it would still be cold, but it just didn't have as much snow. Here, you can have hail and tornado. Did you get any of that on Saturday, Jeff?
No, we actually played a baseball game Saturday for my son. So
yeah. And we were all it was a hot day. So everybody was in shorts, t-shirts. Yeah. And then at the blink of an eye, it just started raining, and then the tree started bending. And we're like, what the heck is going on? And then ice starts flying from the sky. So, but anyways, let's get back to
again, living in Charlotte, these things happen. Mm-hmm. And life happens. A lot of people work from home. So here in Charlotte, right, Jeff? So when it comes down to coaching and stuff, you don't lose out on your coaching appointments because you can do it from home. Yep. So there's that. So is there something in your life that you feel like when you coach that you struggle with, as if like, personally as a business owner, you're like, this is one of my weak spots. So when people ask for coaching, that you kind of struggle with it a little bit, or do you take it as a challenge to be like, I want to be better at this, so I want to help this person too? I'm just kind of curious because sometimes we don't feel adequate to do certain things, right?
Yeah, I think that's why I have a coach. I think if I didn't have a coach and I wasn't working on stuff, I would feel like a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. And I'm the first one to out myself and use myself as an example. So by no means does the word coach mean perfect and exemplary. It means work in process, right? So I think everything. I mean, I'm a business owner too. So like I've got time stuff and money stuff and get nervous and all the things, right? And second guess. I think my favorite context, and I think you mentioned this, Justin, with like the I don't know, right? Like, sometimes I don't know. It's like, if now more than ever, like we actually can't use that, right? We fall victim to it, but it's my favorite one, right? Because like, oh, cool, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to cook an omelet. Cool, I bet you know how you could know. Yeah. You might not know, But now with all the technology and the resources we have, but we also get paralyzed in that. So I think it's just another context that we subscribe to that keeps us stuck. But there's really nothing that my clients bring me that I either haven't worked through or are working through right now. So it's always relatable. There's nothing where I'm like, ooh, like I shouldn't be coaching on this, because I'm always working on it. And what makes it fun is I might bring some of that into the profession. Like, oh, my coach has put me on blast for X, Y, and Z. In fact, I was just talking to a guy in the gym. And he was saying, oh, he had a fun weekend. He was in Baltimore, like a company offsite, and enjoyed himself with all the eating and festivities, right? And he was struggling in the gym. And I'm like, oh, man, like last week I did the thing I've always been resistant and I always am resistant towards, is writing down my food.
Oh, yeah.
Look, it's not like necessarily like I'm trying to be like an Adonis by the pool. I've come to terms with no one at the neighborhood pool is looking at this 40-year-old, man, parent of 3, and being like, oh, that guy looks great. Like, I'm good with that. But I want to feel good when I wake up. I want to feel good when I work out. And that's what I notice now, being on the other side of 40, right? So sure enough, my coach was like, hey, like you're pretty good at habits. How can we make this like a non-negotiable? So we use something I used before. So I read every day. But when I started reading every day 10 years ago, I didn't like reading and I didn't do it every day. So I made it non-negotiable, where like there's no way my wife is letting me enter the bed at night without brushing my teeth. So I made sure that no matter what, I was going to read before I brushed my teeth. So that was a way, like James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, habit stacking. So my coach challenged me. He was like, hey, I remember that was really good for you. How about we do the food journaling in your app before you brush your teeth? And I was like, oh, that's going to work and that's going to annoy me. So sure enough, in like a couple of weeks of journaling my food, drop a couple pounds, drop a couple fat percentage, not changing anything, but simply habit stacking. So that would be one where, hey, I struggle with this thing, and this is what has helped me. And then I would question a client of like, well, what's the thing for you that that's worked that we could take from this arena and put into that arena?
Now, in regards to your reading, do you do audibles, or is physically reading the words on the paper?
So I do both. I actually will separate them. I will read either on a Kindle or a regular book. And then I'll also listen to like something about 45 minutes a day as well. Some kind of positive audio. It could be a sermon. It could be a podcast. I try not to do a book, since I'm reading a book and my mind gets a little confused. For whatever reason, I can parcel out a podcast, separate that from a book. And when I'm listening to a book and reading a book, my brain combines the two. And I'm like, this autobiography and this development book, and I get confused. I like to exercise both. I'm more of a visual learner, but because I've been listening to stuff every day for years, I'm learning to be a better audio learner as well.
Now, you mentioned something, the fact that you have a coach, and I imagine there's a certain level of like putting pride aside, making yourself vulnerable. Just like if you go to a therapist, like, hey, I got to put my pride aside. I got to be more vulnerable with this person. And I think people have to come to the table and be willing to have the truth told to them. Right. So, and I assume that's what you do when they come to you, like, hey, here's the truth about what I see in your situation. No matter how you feel about it, it is what it is. And this is what we need to do. I mean, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I call it relationship equity. So, I tend to meet people where they're at when I work with them. I don't just drop the hammer in the first conversation. I know some coaches do, and that's great. But I think you kind of dance with the client, and I like to, really get them, understand them, build that relationship equity. So when I say that bold thing, or when I call them on something, they know that it's from a good place. So there's that balance there. But I mean, a coach can coach a lie. It won't probably work too well. But a coach can only coach what the client's giving them. And I'm super transparent overall in general, but definitely with my coach. Because I know that he's going to coach whatever I tell him and how I tell him. So it doesn't behoove me to spend all this money on my coach and I'm not bringing him the real stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting is Lois his mother has taken me out to lunch and had agreed to have some mentoring discussions with me. And it's interesting because one thing that she did with me while by the way, just very casual conversation. But if you know Lois, nothing's ever just casual. She's very intentional in what she does. She asked me this question about how I perceive myself. How do I perceive myself when I show up to business? How do I perceive myself when I'm doing this? Or how do I perceive myself? And it was very interesting because when she was saying that, being that, visual learner, right, Jeff? Mm-hmm. I was visualizing the way I want to come across when in business and how I want to come across in the different 5 perspectives of my life. And I already knew from that conversation, which I don't ever tell her that I know these things because I just because a lot of times it takes me some time where I really want to go a little deeper with it. But I could have already told her right there and then when she said those things where I feel like I fall short in showing up, and sometimes you get that visual, like, by the way, and it's funny because they say about something about faking it before you make it. And I know when people are faking it, and I don't know how to explain it, but I can pick up people's energies pretty well. And I know when someone's pretty successful, and I know that they're successful, they're probably still falling apart in other parts. So when she was bringing up these 5, different, I'll say doll looks, right? Because it was interesting because I thought, I don't want to be looking like this in business and still falling short in these other places, right? I want to grow in a complete circle rather than having these, being super successful in real estate and then at the same time falling short my family, right? Mm-hmm. And having the balance. So it's very interesting because when Lois brought that up to me, I actually went to AI in Midjourney and actually had them draw up the pictures based on the descriptions I had and sent them to her. And it was very funny because the visual for myself is something that I look at to say, yes, I want to come off that way, right? But at the same time, what do I have to do? What work do I have to do to get there? Right? Because I don't want to fake it. I don't know if anybody who doesn't know me, I'm pretty real. I'm probably a lot of unfiltered, probably need to be a little bit more filtered. Maybe smooth some of the edges. But at the same time, I am a work in progress. Hence why we're coming to Jeff for coaching. Sorry, Jeff. Hopefully I'll be a success story. Go ahead.
So let me ask you this. Or did you want him to speak to what you just said, or can I ask go with a question?
It's up to you. Yeah, you can fire away.
So one thing when I go to like networking groups and networking meetings, they'll ask the group, they'll say, well, who is your ideal client? Right. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, who is your ideal client? So when when they're watching this or we go out and we're meeting different people, we're like, all right, this is somebody that we know Jeff would work with and be a good fit for him.
Yeah, and it's a great question. And Pam, great job on knowing who you want to aspire to be and knowing where you're at. I think knowing that gap is huge. And we should always have a gap. Because if we're ever content and complacent with who we're at, where we're at, not only with ourselves, but our business, then we're just going to be complacent and not grow. So I don't have that's a bad thing. It's an aspiring thing.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I train a lot of coaches. I've trained over 150 coaches to date, and I lead boot camp courses all over. And one of the things we talk about is like your avatar and your niche. And I out myself and I say, while I see the value in niching, I don't do it.
Right.
And if there's difference between knowing your ideal client and niching, right? I like to micro niche. I like to at different times work with different types of people. But I would say like my avatar or my ideal client has a certain type. So type A, male or female. I've always had 50% of both. Not intentional, but now it is. they have achieved some level of success, right? They've climbed one mountaintop and then realize, oh man, like, was this worth it? Is it worth it? Is this all there is?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something philanthropic bone in their body where they think either what they do or who they are on the planet can actually make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't dare call that a niche because that's billions of people on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And then they got to be coachable, right? They want to grow and be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that's usually who I work with. I don't care what they do as far as industry. I don't care if they're an entrepreneur or work with a corporation. None of that matters to me. It's really about who they are and who they're aspiring to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they're up to from an impact standpoint intrigues me. That's what gets me going when there's things that they can scale their impact. Because I love seeing that. I love being a part of that.
No, that's really great. And just so you know, we are having a networking event on the 30th, Justin. What day? The 30th?
Yeah, 30th.
Jeff is going to be there so that you guys can meet him personally to have these conversations with. Because I think the key piece is that can you be coachable? I think the other part too is to be open to, how other people see you, I think is another key piece. And, I will say that while Jeff has done a lot of independent coaching and he absolutely can do that, him doing some of this group coaching to the point of, leveling the cost for some people has been almost I'll say a very charitable thing on his time, because it is a time thing for him. So we really appreciate you putting that time together to create a group for us at this. But Justin, you want to end this because we got 45 minutes on the video.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's, I'm definitely excited to have you on this episode. I'm excited to actually meet you in person and see, you work with the people at the networking event.
Mm-hmm.
And I 100% agree that it's necessary because I've experienced like the courses, like I said, in my own life, like some courses I've taken. I'm like, man, I wish I would have took this like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have saved 7 years of time because somebody else knew something that I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's why, like, everything you're saying, like, I agree with you. It's biblical as well to find mentors, like people that can show you the way. Even like as a father to my children, like I'm teaching them different things that they don't know, so that they're making the right choices, and I'm saving them from going through a lot of red tape or down the wrong roads. And that's what this all comes down to. So what you're doing, Jeff, is on the right track, and I'm excited to connect with you. And I hope a lot of people who watch the show will decide to do the same exact thing, because we all need it. We really all need it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll leave Jeff if you want to have some last words, and then we'll wrap it up, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been awesome, Justin and Pam. And yeah, for anyone who wants to reach out or explore anything that I'm up to, everything is through jeffmillercoaching.com. My book's on there, podcast is on there, offerings. Appreciate the time, the space, and you two are up to some great things, and just happy to be a part of it as well.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming. All right, so this episode has been sponsored by OperationGo.us. So check out OperationGo.us. The link is in the description. We'll have Jeff's links in the description. Subscribe, like, comment, ask us questions. We want to communicate with you guys. And we hope to talk with you guys soon. This is Keeping It Local with Pam. With Justin.
I'm Pam.
That's Pam. I do that often. With Justin and
Pam.
And Jeff as well. So we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Bye, guys.